give you that peace of mind to really love every second when you're on the road, because you put a bit of thought into it, put a bit of research and put a bit of cash into it. And that saved us big time when we got a leaking fuel tank when we were on the Gibb River Road. The thieves in those areas aren't sophisticated. They are opportunistic thieves, and they're after a few things. Like kit was about $80, and not that we had to use it while we were away, but it's a good peace of mind. And we saw many snakes on our adventures. I mean, much easier to spot a car than an individual person. Where there's wild animals everywhere, cows, kangaroos, emus, camels, you name it, they're everywhere. This makes nearly 700 grams of food, so that's enough for a decent sized dinner for an adult, between two people. The beautiful part about this is, well, there's many beautiful parts around this device as well, is that it has a built-in PLB or personal locator beacon. So G'day guys, welcome to a new episode. Now, as you can see by the thumbnail on this particular YouTube video, this video may save your life, and I'm really serious about that. It's not really an exciting topic like you're used to seeing on our channel, whether it's talking about our vans, all of the beautiful photos and drone footage and those sorts of things in the most amazing locations, but the real critical part about this video these are all of the things that we've learned over the years through many years of camping, off-grid adventures, and also during our lap that we most recently did in 2022, that I really wanted to help everybody with. A lot of these particular things may come up as common sense, and they absolutely are, but there's also hopefully some new things in this video across the suite of topics that I'm going to talk about, where you pick up some particularly new things or different ideas and those sorts of things. And by the way, if I miss anything in this video you think is absolutely critical, please leave a comment in the comments section. Hopefully you pick up some new stuff. Let's kick off with talking about van and car servicing. So, we all know that these things can be quite expensive, particularly if mechanics or technical people are finding areas in your vehicle or your caravan that need new parts or replacements or upgrades and those sorts of things. What I would say though is it is far easier to try and tackle these things that may be pre-existing within your vehicle in the comfort of your own area. What I mean by the comfort of your own area is you've generally got a network of a trusted mechanic that you use. You know where to source parts or expertise and those sorts of things. Whereas when you are in remote and regional areas, one, those things can be even more expensive, considerably more expensive, and two, quite daunting in terms of trying to find somebody. One, can I trust them? And two, do they have the requisite skills to be able to carry out the work? So, you know, being able to do these sorts of things before you leave is a really, really good idea. And I would not be leaving home without doing a major service on your vehicle and without doing a major service on your caravan. The most important part for me around your caravan is what's going to be connecting you to the road. So, and what's going to be connecting the van to your vehicle. So number one, your wheel bearings. I'm a massive advocate for Japanese or European wheel bearings. And as you would have seen on my previous videos, I go for Koyo or Timken bearings in my van, and that's just a rule for me. Don't hit the road for extended travel without making sure, one, your bearings are in great condition, two, the grease is good, and three, they've been replaced out for Japanese bearings. Number two, your tyres. Tyres are critically important, particularly on caravans, which may have a tendency to sit out the back, undercover, or in storage for considerable periods of time. Make sure that, one, your tyre tread and wear is even and consistent and quality. But number two, make sure that your tyres aren't starting to degrade, because if they've been sitting there for over 5 years, rubber has a tendency to harden over time. Particularly when you get beyond 10 years, you really need to start thinking about replacing those tyres. And I'll actually put a photo in this video of how to read when your tyres were manufactured, in particular what year your tyres were manufactured, so it's easier to tell when you need to be replacing those tyres. And you may not need to replace those tyres because of tread wear, but more due to rubber degradation. Now, the other critical parts in terms of your connection is your hitch setup. So the tow ball, the electronic side on your car, and then your hitch, your breakaway system, and those sorts of things on your van. So please make sure that not only a visual inspection is passed, but also that they're well greased. Make sure you really have a strict routine in terms of hitching your caravan or your camper trailer or your hybrid to your car, because it is easy to get disrupted in the middle of the steps that you follow and take off without actually having everything done. So have a really strict routine. Make sure your partner, your kids, anybody that you're traveling with understands what your routine is, and they're not to interrupt you whilst you're hitching your van. Okay, so let's talk roadside assist. And this is an area where you just need to be a little bit careful to make sure you know exactly what you are eligible for. And generally by paying more, you're going to get better quality roadside assist. So I've traditionally always gone for roadside assist built into my car insurance policy. So my comprehensive car insurance policy, I generally use Suncorp, based in Queensland. Suncorp are a little bit dearer, but they also have a really good record of paying out on claims, and their claims process is pretty painless. So that's the reason we use Suncorp. But when we prepared and went for our lap, I was a little bit surprised in terms of what our inclusions were on our particular policies that were wrapped up in our overall comprehensive vehicle policy. And what I mean by inclusions are things that are really important around how far will roadside assist travel to help you out in a sticky situation. And your level of cover will generally tell you that anywhere sort of between 50 and 200 kilometres, and that's significantly different, not if you're in the city like where we live in Brisbane, but when you are out there on the road in very remote locations, you need to make sure that roadside assist are prepared to travel, up to that 200 kilometres to help you out. But a medical checkup is a really essential thing to do before you go. I'd recommend full checkup, get your bloods done, just check to see if there's anything underlying that you're going to need to manage, or may even need to be treated before you go on your big adventure. All right, so let's talk about Wiki Camps. Wiki Camps is something that most people know about. I think it's about $7 or $8. I know it was $7 when we purchased it. It was a once-off charge, and it's absolutely amazing. And most people know it for being able to track your trip. A beautiful map of Australia and the line that follows all the places that you've been, and other people use it to source and book accommodation and those sorts of things. Now, there are some amazing filters that from a safety perspective are really, really important within what's available on Wikicamps. A designated water filler point filter that you can put onto Wikicamps is really, really helpful for two reasons. Number one, you need water to survive, and number two, I don't like traveling with our water tanks full. 240 litres of water or 240 kilos of water within your van is a significant amount of extra weight to pull around the country. If you're doing a 500-600k stint until your next destination, it is so much easier, in my opinion, to travel with empty tanks, providing you've got your weight distribution set up on your van properly, and then fill up as you get closer to your destination. So 15, 10, 5Ks out, using Wikicamps to find those water fill sources is really, really helpful. It's also really helpful if you get to a destination, you run out of water, and you've got your 20 litre jerrys that you need to refill your van with, to know where the closest water spot is. The other thing. All right, next thing I wanted to talk about is weather. Make sure you are familiar with and have access to a really good weather app. I just use Weather Zone. I don't pay for the paid service, so I get the odd ad and those sorts of things, but I find it really handy to get a detailed weeks out forecast in terms of wind, rain, temperature, sun, those sorts of things. And then also the 2-week range is not too bad as well. So if you're heading off grid for an extended period of time, you can get a pretty good, at least high level overview of what the weather's going to throw your way. So another thing that I'd strongly urge people to do before they leave home, and it doesn't have to necessarily be 100% up to date, but if you haven't got a background in first aid, it's really, really handy as you travel more and more remote. You start to realise how far away you may be from professional help. So having the skills yourself, at least at an entry level, is really, really important. Not many people know, but old Mabo has actually had a 20-year career in injury management, return to work, and those sorts of things. So she has an extensive background and obviously a very current training in the area of first aid. I haven't gone and done mine again for some years, but done my bronze medallion. I have been involved in emergency evacuation teams and those sorts of things in my workplace in the past, so I do have a good general overview of first aid as well. So yes, this may incur a cost. I think a first aid course is around $250, but it's really, really important. And for if you're traveling as a couple, it's important to have 2 people, because if the person that has all the knowledge is injured, that other person needs to jump in and render support before the emergency services arrive. So I strongly urge you guys to get a base level of first aid knowledge as. So they're the key things that I'd urge you guys to really look into before you leave home. There's also going to be a lot of things that I talk about later in the video that can be done before you go on your trip as well. So Alright, so here we are in the garage to talk through what I would consider the essential safety pieces with your car setup and what to take with you on particularly your extended trips. So I'm obviously going to miss some things that other people carry. I'm obviously going to be carrying a lot more stuff than other people. It really comes down to the weights that you've got available to you. But there's a few things here that really did save us while we were on our recent lap. Alright, so this is my main toolbox here. Number 1, your repair kits. So got a windscreen repair kit there at the back. This stuff, which is called Dynasteel, is like a steel reinforced putty, and that saved us big time when we got a leaking fuel tank when we're on the Gibb River Road in August. So make sure you've got some of that in your kit. The other thing that you really need to do in terms of patching is this 2-part epoxy Dynasteel paste. So when I repaired my fuel tank, I originally stopped the flow of diesel with this steel putty. Once it had 24 hours to dry and you know, get the surface scuffed up and cleaned, I then applied an epoxy patch, and the repair in the fuel tank lasted over a month from when we left the Gibb River Road through to Darwin. So a massive thumbs up to that. Make sure you've got a range of shifters and those sorts of things. They always come in handy. And at least your basic electrical connections, tapes, zip ties, and a collection of nuts and bolts that you're going to need, particularly your automotive ones, so your M6s, M8s, M10s and those sorts of things. The last thing I wanted to point out in my toolbox is the type of jack that I use. It's a 6-ton hydraulic jack, relatively low because the van sits, or the swing arms on the van sit relatively low to the ground, but particularly for people who have got single axle vans like we travel in, you need a highly rated jack, because a lot of the time your car jack is not going to be rated to get that van up off the ground, because there's only 2 wheels touching the ground. So effectively with a 4-wheel car, you're probably doing a fair bit of extra hard work. So a 6-ton bottle jack is what I carry. Also have a high lift jack. That's for people who know how to use high lift jacks. I'm not going to go into detail on them. They can be probably more dangerous than the help that they can render. So if you do get a high lift jack, I strongly recommend you learn how to use it properly. Won't go through the whole toolkit. Alright, the next thing, and this is really the only king stuff that we've got, but it is a lithium jump starter kit. Now I didn't use this on my car because I didn't need to while we were on our lap, but had to use it on several other people's cars. So I think it's coming to the end of its life. It seems to lose charge relatively quickly, but for I think it was $90 piece of kit. This has come in really handy when jump starting other people's cars. First aid kits. So I travel with, I guess, a fairly comprehensive but relatively compact overall safety kit. This actually came from not Super Cheap, came from King's as well. It was $150, but it's relatively comprehensive. We've only opened it a couple of times for Band-Aids, but there is lots and lots of good gear in there that you need in an emergency situation, plus some first aid books that help you out if you're in a bit of a bind. We also, given that we hike an awful lot and spend a lot of time in the warmer climate, use a snakebite kit. So again, I think we ordered this one online, but I think it's from the same company that the King's guys use. This snakebite kit was about $80, and not that we had to use it while we were away, but it's a good peace of mind, and we saw many snakes on our adventures. So make sure I personally think you should, if you're venturing out into wild terrain, you need a snakebite kit on you, and you need to know how to use it. So research as much as you can around how to treat snake bites, i.e. how to splint them, how to wrap them, and those sorts of things to be the most effective, how to keep people calm and cool if they've been bitten by snakes. So research that as well before you go. I've talked a lot about this piece of equipment in quite a few of our videos. Good old-fashioned torque wrench. I always, after a day of corrugated driving, check my wheel nuts. If I've done any work on the car or the van, pulled the wheel bearings out and re-grease them and those sorts of things, I always make sure at 50, 100, 250 and 500 kilometre intervals, I always get out and retension the wheel nuts. And then on to the automotive toolkit that I travel with. Now this is just a super cheap auto piece of kit. I think I paid around $180 half price on this kit. I'm not rebuilding engines or working on cars on a daily basis, so this is just compact enough but also comprehensive enough to do us on the road. So we've got a whole range of sockets, Allen keys, adapters and those sorts of things, your basic spanners, pliers, a torque bar, and the heads and sockets that you need. So I've used this toolkit so many times that I've bought one for each of the boys as well. It doesn't take up a heap of space in the back of your car, but it's comprehensive enough to pretty much do most jobs that you need it to do. Again, it's a super cheap product, but it's got a lifetime warranty on it as well. So I find that really, really, for what I paid, amazing value. Now, a tyre repair kit. What I would strongly urge people to do, I haven't had to use this one, but I have repaired a tyre in a workshop before, is learn how, before you leave, there's some good videos on YouTube, learn how to use these things, because if you're sitting on the side of the road, dust flying, rocks flying, cars going everywhere, and you need to repair a tyre in a hurry, you're going to want to have a bit of experience, not hands-on experience, but at least a picture in your head of what you need to do to repair a tyre. Now, I carry an 8-ton 9-metre snatch strap with me. This particular one is brand new. We have had a couple that have gotten wet before, in creeks and those sorts of things, and needed to be turfed just from a safety aspect. You don't need the best on the market, but having a snatch strap is what I would consider essential, along with a couple of shackles and those sorts of things. Again, with any of this recovery gear, make sure you know how to use it. Next time we need a recovery with a snatch strap, I might make a video. Alright, other pieces of essential recovery gear for your car, I think. Carry a shovel. Now I've got a rhino rack with the shovel holder on the side, so these are the awkward things to store, but I also store my Max Tracks up on the rhino rack as well. Now I travel with 6 Max Tracks simply because I've got 4 tyres on the car and 2 tyres on the van, and that may sound excessive, but I don't know how many times I've had these Max Tracks off the car to help other people who are only carrying 2 or none at all, and realistically you need them, guys. I know that tyre pressures and those sorts of things are really critical. If you don't know about tyre pressures when you're driving on dirt roads or sand and those sorts of things, do your research. But Max Tracks are really essential, guys. One of the main reasons I haven't had to get the snatch strap out on our big adventure was because we had a set of 4 Campboss Tyre deflators. These are absolutely amazing in that you can actually adjust the PSI settings on these really easy. So these ones are set for 18 PSI, so they've obviously been on the beach. But just by twisting this little shaft, once you've undone this lock nut, you can set the PSI between 10 and 30 PSI, which is absolutely perfect for your corrugated roads and those sorts of things. Another piece which a lot of people don't know about, so this adapter, which was about $9 from Bunnings from memory, has a range of different, I guess, universal tap head fittings or valve fittings to get you into most taps around the country. We've used this significantly, you know, when we're filling up our water tanks and those sorts of things around Australia. I'd be lost without this little piece of kit. The most important part with all of these things is wherever possible, make sure you store these pieces in your car, not in your van, because the worst part is, you know, most of the time you're going to go and land your van at a campsite, but you're going to take your car and go deeper into the bush, deeper into the wherever you are, and you're going to need these things at a pinch. So all right, so as I said, I'm going to talk you through Barry and what I think are the essential 5 mods that you need to do to your car for long range off-grid travel. Again, I'm not going to go through all of the modifications on the car, but I'm going to go through the ones that I think are absolutely essential. So let's take a look. Number 1, get yourself a Bullbar where there's wild animals everywhere. Cows, kangaroos, emus, camels, you name it. They're everywhere. Just make sure you've got a quality Bullbar on your car, because it may cop some damage, but it may be the difference between you being able to get to safety and being stranded out in the middle of nowhere. So make sure you have got a Bullbar fitted to your car. The next thing, a quality UHF aerial. I've already talked about it in the video, so I'm not going to go over it too much more detail, but make sure you've got a quality UHF on your car. Next, a good set of all-terrain tyres or mud tyres, depending on how hardcore you're going, but all-terrain tyres are really essential when you are going into the outback. I did notice, you know, at one of our stops at a station in the Kimberley, all of the tyres that had been replaced in their tyre repair centre were the standard highway terrain cars that come on most utes these days. They are just not up to corrugations, and they're just not up to the rocks and those sorts of things that you're going to come across. Not to say that these are foolproof, but I run Falk and Wild Peaks. There's lots of good ones on the market, so make sure you've got yourself a quality set of all-terrain tyres. You'll also see here that little valve cap, which is a sensor for our tyre pressure monitoring system. So I'll quickly show you the in-car unit as well. I've spoken about this on lots of videos, but it is just amazing peace of mind when you're traveling to know what your tyre pressures are at and your van tyre pressures are at. You can sense that there's problems not only with the PSI but with the temperature quickly, and you can adapt and make sure that you're safe. We also do have an agreement with iCheck tyre pressure monitoring systems. I will whack some stuff in the description, and also in the screenshots here, you can get a 10% discount if you use our unique code. So make sure you've got a tyre pressure monitoring system in your car. And last but not least, I'm not going to get underneath the car and show you this, but I think a long range tank is also really essential when you're in the outback. So people argue that you could get away with not having to have one, and they're right. But if you get to a place, particularly in the shoulder season and things like that, that don't have any diesel, don't have any petrol or whatever you're using in your car, you can find yourself in trouble relatively quickly. So I just think a long range tank and then carrying jerry cans if you really need to is a really smart idea. I'd always cater for at least 30 to 50 litres more than you think you're going to need, because you never know when the next station is going to be down or out of fuel or things like that. So just really simple stuff, guys, but I think a long range tank is on my list of essentials. Now this piece isn't what I would consider essential, but if you're traveling by yourself in very remote areas, I think it's very close to being essential. So I run a Runva winch on my car. There's all the tree guard and all the bits and pieces for it, but And I also think that stainless steel bash plates, when you're in the Outback, along with your Bullbar, are a pretty smart idea as well. So those two things I wouldn't say are absolutely essential, but they're a pretty smart idea. I didn't run through all the costs. So the Bullbar, you can get a Bullbar for around $3.5–4 grand these days. They have gone up in price, but I still think they're well worth the money. All-terrain tyres that are on my car were $350 a throw retail. Your UHF with the aerial, if you're not proficient with the install and the in-car unit, probably going to cost you around $500. It's just a really smart piece of kit. Tyre pressure monitoring system. The iCheck for the 8 tyre, so it monitors your spares for your van and your car as well, is around $330, but remembering you can get 10% if you use our unique code. And the long range tank, there's multiple long range tanks on the market depending on your make and model of car. So you could pick one of those up for around $1,500 installed. And again, I just think it's a smart idea. There's a whole heap of other mods to my car. I'm just making sure I run through the absolutely essential ones for your safety. We decided against getting a satellite telephone, and the main reason behind that was because we knew that when we were, really off grid, we didn't really want to have to talk to people, but you do need the content. That sounds really bad. Of course we like talking to people, but we didn't need to talk to people in an emergency because we found this particular device, and there's a range of different brands on the market, but we decided that this one worked for us really, really well. It's called a Zoleo. A lot of people have heard about them, but then a lot of people that haven't researched this stuff haven't. So this is a satellite communicator. It works on the Iridium satellite network, and it allows you to send, and it Bluetooths into your mobile phone, and there's an app that you open on your mobile phone, and I'll put some screenshots of that into this particular video, which allow you to utilize this communications device to send text messages to anybody that you want to send text messages to. Now bear in mind that it does have a SIM in it, so it will be coming from a different number, so before you leave, let your friends and family know that you've got a secondary number that will be running off your satellite communicator. The beautiful part about this is, well, there's many beautiful parts around this device as well, is that it has a built-in PLB or personal locator beacon. So in an emergency, you simply press and hold this SOS button and it will alert authorities with pinpoint GPS accuracy where you are and that you're in a lot of trouble. So this works the same as an EPIRB or a PLB. And I just find that that's amazing peace of mind in that instead of having to carry a satellite phone and a PLB or EPIRB, that it's all built into the one device. There's a couple of other things that this will do as well. You can just see this tick button here. When you press that particular button, what that will do is it will send an SMS with your GPS coordinates when you've arrived safely to 3 preset numbers. And just being able to send through that message, 1, helps them understand that we're okay, but 2, gives them your last known GPS coordinates in the event of an emergency. So the Zoleo comes in at around $350 recommended retail. We got this on sale at Anaconda. I think we paid $300 or $299 for it. It's an amazing piece of kit for the price. Now, it does come with a plan, but another beautiful thing about the Zoleo is when you're not traveling, or if you've got an extended period where you're not going to be off-grid or outside of a mobile coverage area, you also can activate and then deactivate your plan as you wish. And I think it's $5 a month to keep your Zoleo and your account set up active, or you can completely disconnect it. There's no contracts included in it. I think the plans range from around $40 to $80 a month, and that will be a range of a limited amount of text messages per month right through to unlimited messages. So all it needs is a line of sight to the sky, and it just works brilliantly. Oh, sorry, the last thing that it does as well is it will give you really accurate weather forecasts via the mobile app that I was talking about. I actually think that the accuracy, particularly the short-term weather forecasts that we got from this particular device when we were off-grid, were better than the mobile applications like Weather Zone or Apple Weather and those sorts of things. So just a really, really great device. I know it's got a monthly plan, but it's so worth it for the peace of mind, and it very much could save your life. We also carry a handheld UHF as well, so when we're going hiking into the bush, for whatever reason we might not be able to get to our Zolio, being able to get your hands on one of these will at least alert people in your local area, within whatever the range of these particular things are, depending on the terrain that you're in, be able to maybe get an emergency mayday call out. The other thing that Mabo loves to do with this is when I'm reversing into a tight spot at a campsite, she will actually talk to me rather than yelling at me when I can't hear her in the car and those sorts of things. She likes to yell at me anyway, but she does give me directions on reversing the van with this as well. So multi-uses for this and super handy. You can even give it to your mates if they haven't got a UHF in your car and you're on Fraser or something like that, which we've done in the past. Other thing about communication, this might be a bit of a weird one and it's a bit of a taboo topic because some people don't like drones, is we utilise the drone when we are in terrain that we're not sure of or that we've never been in before, and there's a bit of a risk in terms of rock falls, creeks and river crossings and those sorts of things. It is really handy to have a drone, providing you're in an area where you can use drones, to throw it up in the air and do a bit of a recon mission, because these things can see things up to about 5 kilometres range that your eyes simply can't see. So the drone not only is great for some of the photography that you see in our videos, and we love our drones for that, but it is really good for a reco. So let's quickly talk about mobile phones, because I think it's pretty commonly known in Australia that Telstra is the best mobile network in Australia in regards to coverage. However, what I would say is Mabel and I both had Telstra SIMs in our mobile phone, and we did travel with friends who had Optus SIMs, and what I would say, particularly in the southwest Kimberley, that Optus has better coverage. So in an ideal situation, if you're not under contract and you can afford to do this, or even just to grab a prepaid SIM, it is a good idea, if you're relying on your mobile communications, to carry a Telstra SIM and an Optus SIM. All right, so let's go over some other things that you need to do when you are hitting the deep outback and you're getting quite remote. These are things that you need to maintain while you're on the road. So let's talk about it. Number one, water. I know that it's common sense, but make sure you've got at least 10 litres of water stored in your car somewhere. It doesn't have to be cold. We've got a fridge in the back of the car as well as one in the van, but you need to have at least 10 litres of water for 2 people. That gives you enough water for 3 days in hot conditions. Probably not enough that's optimal, but enough to keep you alive. And other than air, water's the most important thing that you need to survival. The next part is food. We always make sure that we've got 3 days worth of food in the car. And again, I've already spoken about this, but make sure you're not just packing everything away in your van, because I know that your van generally has a lot more storage. But we always have at least 3 days of food in the car when we're going off grid. Now you might think, gee, that sounds like it's a little bit heavy. So I've got a few things, and you may have seen this on other videos that we've done before. This freeze-dried food, whilst it does look like, you'd probably quote me from other videos, a bag of vomit when it's on a plate, is actually really, really effective. One, in filling you up, and 2, it doesn't actually taste that bad. But it's this is a meal for 2. It's roast chicken. It's 175 grams as is. We carry a jet boil, obviously, with us in the car too, to be able to boil water. But this makes nearly 700 grams of food. So that's enough for a decent sized dinner for an adult, between 2 people. The next piece is, your basic tin foods like your tuna or your baked beans and those sorts of things. Again, don't take up a great deal of space, but can be the difference between surviving if you're caught in the outback for 3 days. Now, the other thing I would say around being safe, if your car breaks down, you do a tyre, you damage something, and it means that you can't move, and you're waiting for emergency services, is unless your car is leaking fuel as an explosion risk, stay with your car. Do not leave your car. When you think about it, if you were a helicopter pilot and you were searching for people and you're walking into dense bushland and that sort of thing, it's going to be much easier to spot a car than an individual person as you're doing a sweep of the air. The other thing that I'd recommend is, if you've got an awning on your car like we do, pull it out and sit there, stay under the awning, don't get hammered by the elements. And also that helps with that whole, the biggest footprint I can possibly have to be spotted from the air. So pulling the awning out is a great idea, even if you don't need it. So I've talked about communication devices. These things are really, really helpful, because one of the killers to communication devices like mobile phones and satellite communicators and those sorts of things is water. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're caught needing to cross creeks or rivers and those sorts of things, simply have a couple of Ziploc bags on you which take up no space and weigh nothing. Open her up and whack your device in there. Alright, some last minute thing, guys, around security. This is just my opinion. A lot of people are worried about that, and you see lots of questions on chat forums. The only security device that I used while we were doing our lap is a pin lock. Went straight through the DO35 hitch. Yes, a professional thief could find a way to grind it off, or get it and take the van and those sorts of things, but I don't think, regardless of how much you spend on security and those sorts of things, if a thief is that good, they're basically going to get your stuff anyway. What I did find though, and we stayed in some of the worst known places for theft and that sort of thing, the thieves in those areas aren't sophisticated. They are opportunistic thieves, and they're after a few things. Number one, they're after your keys, so they can steal your car. So don't be stupid. Put your keys with you at night. Don't put them on a hook. Don't leave them in the car at any stage. Actually, make sure they're in your pocket, under your pillow, under your mattress, or something like that. That is the simplest way to stop people stealing your car. Similar thing with your wallet, similar thing with your mobile phones, and if you smoke, leave them out of sight, because they're really the only things that these thieves are chasing. They're not chasing barbecues. I didn't chain my barbecue to the chassis of the van ever, and left it out for multiple days at a time when we weren't at campsite. No one ever looked at my barbecue as far as I'm aware, because it was there every time I got back. So I think you can overthink security when you're on the road in terms of somebody flogging your van and those sorts of things. My view is a couple of basic things. Make sure your valuables aren't around in sight, and make sure your keys aren't left in your car in particular, and you're 90% of the way to being there. Now, another good thing is Apple devices in particular. I'm assuming Android devices do it as well. And those little tags that you can get that look like a bullet battery or a video game battery for Apple, I think they're called Air tags, are really good through your GPS locator services on your phone, that in the event that your van does get stolen, at least you can track it. Just tape them in your van, and away they go. People don't look for those sorts of things when they're stealing a van. They're just trying to get out there as quickly as possible. So no, that doesn't stop your van from being stolen, but at least you can track it and get the emergency authorities onto the people that have done it. Lastly, travelling with cash. Now, we had read on many forums that you need to take considerable amounts of cash with you. Now, we always had it well hidden. I'm not going to say where that is, just in case you camp next to us, but we found that we didn't need nearly as much cash as we thought we would. But most places that you need to pay cash at, national park camps and those sorts of things, also have online booking portals. We actually found that I reckon $500 in cash safely stored away in your car will be enough to get you out of most situations. Don't just carry hundreds or 50s. Get it broken down into smaller denominations. But you don't need to travel with thousands of dollars worth of cash. We found, at least from our experiences on the road. So I hope you found this video helpful, guys. I know it's been long. You've had to hear my monotone voice and look at my face and that sort of thing a lot, but I hope it's helped you out. As I said at the beginning of the video, whack your questions, your comments, and your thoughts in the comments on this particular video. We love the interaction with our audience. And, people are going to have different opinions on these sorts of things, which is all good. It comes down to how much weight, how much space you've got in your touring setup. These are just the things that I think are really, really important and give you that peace of mind to really love every second when you're on the road, because you put a bit of thought into it, put a bit of research and put a bit of cash into it, and you've got those things set up. And you hopefully safe travels to everybody, and hopefully you pick something up in this video. Cheers, guys.